The elevator doors opened. I stepped into the meeting room with a notebook in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. Then I saw him. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. The man sitting across the table was supposed to be our company's newest client. Instead, he was the stranger I had woken up beside 2 mornings earlier. And nobody in that room knew it. Not my manager. Not my co-workers. Not even the receptionist standing by the door. Only he and I knew the truth. The coffee in my hand suddenly felt too heavy. My heart pounded so hard that I could hear it in my ears. He looked just as shocked as I was. But unlike me, he quickly hid it. A calm smile appeared on his face. A professional smile. The kind people wear in business meetings. I wished I could do the same. Instead, I stood frozen beside the door. 2 days earlier, I had not even known his name. 2 days earlier, I thought my life was ending. Now he was sitting at a conference table, wearing an expensive suit, looking like he belonged in a business magazine. And somehow, our worlds had crashed into each other. But before I tell you how that happened, I need to go back to the beginning. My name is Emma. I was 26 years old and worked as a project coordinator for a marketing company in Portland. My life was not exciting. Most days looked exactly the same. I woke up early. I took the train to work. I spent 8 hours answering emails, attending meetings, and drinking too much coffee. Then I went home to the apartment I shared with my boyfriend. At least, that was how my life used to be. His name was Ryan. For 3 years, he had been the center of my world. He knew my favorite movies. He knew how I took my coffee. He knew every dream I had for the future. I trusted him completely. That was my biggest mistake. The Friday everything changed started like any other day. The sky was gray. The office was busy. My manager kept assigning new tasks. I remember checking the clock every few minutes because Ryan and I had plans that evening. We were supposed to have dinner together. Around 5 o'clock, my phone vibrated. A message from Ryan appeared on the screen. He asked me to meet him at a small park a few blocks from my office. I smiled. I thought he was planning something romantic. Maybe he wanted to surprise me. Maybe he had good news. Maybe he was finally ready to talk about moving in together permanently. I had no idea my entire future was about to disappear. When I reached the park, Ryan was already there. He sat alone on a wooden bench. Something felt wrong immediately. Usually he smiled when he saw me. Usually he stood up and hugged me. This time he stayed seated. His shoulders looked heavy. His eyes stayed on the ground. The smile disappeared from my face. I sat beside him. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The air felt strangely cold. Finally he took a deep breath. "Emma, I need to tell you something." My stomach tightened. Nobody starts a happy conversation that way. I waited. Ryan rubbed his hands together. Then he said the words that shattered everything. "I met someone else." The sounds of the city seemed to disappear. Cars. Birds. People talking nearby. Everything faded away. I stared at him. I honestly thought I had heard him wrong. "What?" His voice became quieter. "I didn't plan it. But I fell in love with someone." My chest hurt. The pain arrived so quickly that it felt physical. I could barely breathe. "How long?" I asked. Ryan closed his eyes. 5 months. 5 months. 5 months of lies. 5 months of pretending. 5 months of kissing me goodbye every morning while loving someone else. I felt sick. I felt foolish. Most of all, I felt betrayed. Tears filled my eyes. I tried to stop them. I failed. Ryan reached toward me. I pulled away. I did not want his comfort. "Not anymore. Are you leaving me?" The answer came immediately. Yes. That single word ended 3 years of my life. A few minutes later, Ryan walked away. He never looked back. I watched him disappear down the sidewalk. Then I sat alone on that bench while the evening sky slowly grew darker. I do not know how long I stayed there. Maybe 30 minutes. Maybe an hour. Eventually my phone rang. It was my best friend, Lily. The moment she heard my voice, she knew something was wrong. An hour later, Lily and our other friend, Sophie, were sitting in my apartment listening to the whole story. Both of them looked furious. I always thought he was too perfect, Sophie said. Lily shook her head. He doesn't deserve you. I appreciated their support. But nothing made me feel better. Every corner of the apartment reminded me of Ryan. His books. His jacket. His coffee mug. Even the silence hurt. Around 9 o'clock, Lily stood up. We're going out. I immediately said no. She ignored me. We are absolutely going out. I don't want to. You need fresh air. I want to stay home. You need to remember you're still alive. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Sophie smiled. One drink. I looked at both of them. They were trying so hard to help. Finally I sighed. One drink. 30 minutes later, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror. I washed my face. I fixed my makeup. I changed into a dark blue dress I had not worn in months. I still felt broken. But at least I looked human again. Outside, the city lights reflected on wet streets. People laughed as they walked past restaurants and bars. Life continued as if nothing had happened. I wished my heart could do the same. We entered a small lounge downtown. Soft music played through hidden speakers. The room glowed with warm golden light. People talked, danced, and laughed. At first, I felt out of place. Then something unexpected happened. For the first time that day, I stopped thinking about Ryan. Only for a few minutes. But it was enough. I ordered a sweet cocktail. Lily told a funny story. Sophie made us laugh. A small piece of my sadness loosened its grip. Then I noticed someone watching me. Across the room stood a tall man near the dance floor. Dark hair. Strong shoulders. Calm eyes. He wasn't staring in a rude way. He simply looked interested. When our eyes met, he smiled. Something inside me stirred. Not love. Not even attraction exactly. Just curiosity. For the first time all day, I felt something other than pain. The stranger started walking toward me. And without realizing it, I smiled back. The stranger stopped beside our table. Up close, he looked older than me. Maybe early 30s. There was something calm about him. Something steady. The opposite of the storm inside my head. Can I buy you a drink? He asked. His voice was warm and confident. Normally I would have said no. I was not the type of woman who talked to strangers in bars. But that night was different. Everything about that night was different. Before I could answer, Lily grinned. Please do, she said. I laughed despite myself. The stranger laughed too. A few minutes later, he was sitting with us. His name was Ethan. At least that was what he told me. We talked about simple things. Work. Travel. Favorite movies. Nothing serious. Nothing emotional. And somehow that made it easier. For the first time all day, nobody asked me how I felt. Nobody asked about Ryan. Nobody looked at me with pity. Ethan treated me like a normal person. I liked that. As the evening continued, Lily and Sophie slowly disappeared into conversations with other people. Eventually Ethan and I were talking alone. The music became slower. The crowd became smaller. The room felt warmer. He told me he traveled often for work. He said he spent too much time in hotels and airports. I told him I had never traveled much. I told him I spent most of my life working. He smiled. Maybe you need more adventure. I laughed. Today was adventurous enough. He studied my face. For a moment, I thought he would ask what happened. He didn't. Instead he said, fair enough. That answer surprised me. Most people are curious. Most people want details. Ethan simply respected the boundary. The conversation continued. Easy. Natural. Comfortable. Hours passed without me noticing. Then the band started playing a slow song. Several couples moved onto the dance floor. Ethan looked at me. Would you like to dance? My first instinct was to refuse. Then I looked around. Everyone else seemed happy. Everyone else seemed free. Maybe for one song, I could pretend my heart wasn't broken. Okay, I said. He held out his hand. I took it. The dance floor felt smaller than I expected. The music wrapped around us. His hand rested lightly against my back. Not demanding. Not possessive. Just gentle. We moved slowly with the rhythm. For the first time all evening, I noticed how tired I was. Not physically. Emotionally. I was exhausted from being hurt. Exhausted from pretending I was fine. Exhausted from thinking about Ryan. Ethan must have sensed something. His voice was soft. You don't have to smile if you don't want to. I looked up at him. What? You've been pretending all night. The words caught me off guard. I opened my mouth. Then closed it again. Because he was right. I had been pretending. The smile. The laughter. The jokes. None of them were real. My eyes suddenly filled with tears. I turned away quickly. Embarrassed. But Ethan did not make a big deal about it. He simply stayed beside me. Sometimes kindness hurts more than cruelty. Sometimes kindness breaks down walls. That was what happened to me. By the time the song ended, I no longer wanted the night to end. Not because I loved him. Not because I knew him. But because being with him felt peaceful. Outside the lounge, the air was cool. The city lights reflected across the wet pavement. People walked past us without paying attention. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Ethan looked at me. What happens now? It was a simple question. But I understood what he meant. I could go home. We could say goodbye. We could never see each other again. That would be the smart choice. The safe choice. The responsible choice. Instead, I made the most reckless decision of my life. I don't know, I admitted. Ethan looked at me carefully. I don't want to take advantage of you. Those words surprised me. Most men would have said something different. Most men would have pushed harder. He didn't. That made him even harder to resist. The silence between us stretched longer. Then I heard myself say something I never expected. Do you want to come over for coffee? The moment the words left my mouth, I almost took them back. But Ethan simply smiled. A small smile. A careful smile. Only if you're sure. I wasn't sure. Not at all. But I nodded anyway. 20 minutes later, we were standing inside my apartment. The room felt strangely different with him there. Like someone had changed the lighting. Or moved the walls. Everything felt unfamiliar. I suddenly became nervous. Very nervous. I realized I knew almost nothing about him. Not his family. Not his friends. Not even his last name. Yet somehow he was standing in my kitchen. Looking completely comfortable. We talked for another hour. Then another. Coffee became wine. Conversation became laughter. The distance between us slowly disappeared. And sometime after midnight, I stopped thinking about Ryan completely. For the first time since the breakup, my heart felt quiet. Not healed. Not fixed. Just quiet. That feeling alone was enough. The next morning, sunlight pushed through my curtains. I opened my eyes slowly. For a moment, I did not remember where I was. Then I turned my head. And saw Ethan sleeping beside me. My stomach dropped. Reality returned all at once. What had I done? I barely knew him. I didn't even know whether Ethan was his real name. Panic replaced every good feeling from the night before. I carefully climbed out of bed. I dressed as quietly as possible. Then I found a piece of paper. My hands shook while I wrote. Thank you for last night. Please lock the door when you leave. I hope you understand. I left the note on the kitchen counter. Then I grabbed my bag and hurried outside. The cold morning air hit my face. I walked 3 blocks before finally stopping. My heart was racing. I felt foolish, embarrassed, confused. I told myself I would never see him again. I told myself it had been a mistake. A strange night. A temporary escape. Nothing more. What I didn't know was that less than 48 hours later, I would walk into a meeting room. And Ethan would be waiting there. Monday mornings were usually boring. People complained about traffic. Co-workers carried oversized coffee cups. Someone was always late. But that Monday felt different from the moment I entered the office. Everyone seemed nervous. People moved quickly between desks. Managers held urgent conversations. The conference room had been cleaned twice before 9 o'clock. A major client was arriving. At least that was what everyone kept saying. I tried to focus on my work. I answered emails, updated reports, checked schedules. But my thoughts kept returning to Saturday night. The stranger. The apartment. The note. The mistake. Every time I remembered it, my stomach tightened. I kept wondering whether he had been angry, whether he had laughed, whether he had thought I was rude. Then I forced myself to stop. None of it mattered. I would never see him again. Around 10 o'clock, my manager appeared beside my desk. His name was Robert. He was a good manager, but he loved meetings more than anyone I had ever met. Emma. I looked up. The client just arrived. I nodded. Good. I need you in the conference room. Immediately my nerves returned. I grabbed my notebook, took a deep breath, and followed him down the hallway. The closer we got to the conference room, the faster my heart beat. Not because of the client. Because presentations always made me nervous. Robert opened the door. I stepped inside. And everything stopped. The man sitting across the table looked up. Our eyes met. Ethan. The notebook nearly slipped from my hand. For one terrible second, nobody moved. Then his expression changed. Shock disappeared. Professional confidence returned. He stood up calmly. The transformation was almost impressive. If I had not known him, I would never have guessed what happened 2 nights earlier. Robert smiled. Emma, I'd like you to meet our new client, Ethan Parker. Parker. Now I finally knew his last name. I wished I didn't. Ethan extended his hand. Nice to meet you. The words sounded perfectly normal. But something flashed in his eyes. Something only I could understand. My throat felt dry. I shook his hand. His touch lasted only a second. Still, it felt far too long. Nice to meet you too. My voice sounded strange. Thin. Uncertain. I hoped nobody noticed. Fortunately, everyone seemed focused on business. The meeting began. Charts appeared on screens. Numbers filled the room. People discussed budgets and marketing strategies. I heard almost none of it. Because every time I looked up, Ethan was there. Sitting across from me. Listening carefully. Taking notes. Acting as if he had never spent the night in my apartment. I hated how calm he looked. I hated how nervous I felt. After an hour, the meeting finally ended. People stood up. Conversations started. I gathered my papers as quickly as possible. Then headed toward the door. I needed air. I needed distance. Most of all, I needed time to think. I almost escaped. Almost. Emma. The voice came from behind me. My entire body froze. Slowly, I turned around. Ethan stood a few feet away. Everyone else had already left. The conference room was nearly empty. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he smiled. A real smile this time. Not the professional version. The one from the lounge. The one that made me nervous. Well, he said quietly. This is unexpected. I folded my arms. You think? His smile widened slightly. No. I think this is completely insane. Despite myself, I laughed. Only for a second. But it happened. The tension eased. Just a little. Ethan looked relieved. I've been trying to figure out if I should apologize. For what? For showing up at your office. I stared at him. You didn't know I worked here. Exactly. For the first time, I realized he seemed just as uncomfortable as I was. That surprised me. Confident people rarely looked nervous. Yet he did. About the note, he said. My face immediately became hot. Oh no. He laughed softly. Oh yes. I was hoping we'd never discuss it. I figured. I covered my eyes briefly. This is embarrassing. A little. A little. Okay, very embarrassing. Now we were both laughing. And somehow that made everything worse. Because laughing with him felt easy. Too easy. The kind of easy that creates problems. Eventually footsteps sounded in the hallway. Reality returned immediately. We stepped apart. Professional again. Careful again. Before leaving, Ethan paused. There is something I need you to know. I looked at him. His expression became serious. Saturday night wasn't a game for me. The room suddenly felt quiet. I know we barely know each other, he continued. But I wasn't pretending. My heart skipped once. Then twice. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't even sure what I felt. 2 days earlier, another man had shattered my heart. I was not ready for new feelings. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. Ethan seemed to understand. He nodded slowly. You don't have to answer. Then he left. I stood alone in the conference room for several seconds. My thoughts were spinning. Nothing about this situation made sense. Nothing about it felt safe. And yet, for the rest of the day, I found myself watching the hallway whenever someone walked by. Wondering if it was him. Wondering if he would come back. Wondering if one reckless night had just changed my life for a second time. And deep down, a small part of me was afraid of the answer. That evening, I stayed late at the office. Most of my co-workers had already gone home. The lights above the empty desks made the room feel cold and quiet. I tried to finish a report, but I read the same sentence 5 times. Ethan's words kept returning to me. Saturday night was not a game for me. I wanted to believe him. But I had believed Ryan too. That was the problem. Trust had once felt natural. Now it felt dangerous. At 7 o'clock, I finally closed my laptop. When I reached the lobby, Ethan was standing near the glass doors. He was not wearing his suit jacket. His sleeves were rolled up, and his tie was loose. He looked less like an important client and more like the man from the lounge. My heart began to beat faster. Are you waiting for someone? I asked. He looked at me. Yes. I knew he meant me. I glanced toward the security desk. This is not a good idea. I only want to talk. We already talked. Not enough. I should have walked away. Instead, I stood there. Outside, rain had started to fall. Small drops ran down the glass doors behind him. Ethan said, there is a coffee shop across the street. Public place. 20 minutes. I looked at his face. He was not pushing me. He was giving me a choice. That mattered. 20 minutes, I said. The coffee shop was nearly empty. We chose a table near the window. I ordered tea because I had already had too much coffee. Ethan did not say anything until we were both seated. Then he looked directly at me. I know your situation is complicated. You know almost nothing about my situation. I know someone hurt you. My fingers tightened around the warm cup. I told you too much that night. You told me enough. I looked outside. People hurried along the wet sidewalk under dark umbrellas. I ended a 3-year relationship less than 2 days before I met you, I said. I understand. No, you don't. My voice came out sharper than I expected. I don't understand it either. Ethan stayed quiet. That made it easier to continue. I was angry. I was heartbroken. I wanted to stop feeling like the person nobody chose. He listened without interrupting. So I went home with a stranger, I said. That is not who I am. I never thought it was. I looked at him. Then what did you think? He took a moment before answering. I thought you were someone having the worst night of her life. His answer softened something inside me. But I was still afraid. You are also a client, I said. I know. If people find out, they may think I am using this situation. I would never allow that. You cannot control what people think. No, he said. But we can control what we do. I waited. He placed both hands on the table. We can keep everything professional at work. No private meetings in the office. No special treatment. No decisions involving your position. He had clearly thought about this. If that is still too much, he continued, I will respect it. And outside work? His eyes stayed on mine. Outside work, I would like to know you. There it was. Simple. Honest. Not a promise of forever. Not a dramatic speech. Just a request for another chance to talk. I looked down at my tea. I am not ready for a relationship. Then we don't call it one. I don't want another mistake. Neither do I. The 20 minutes became an hour. We talked until the coffee shop workers began cleaning nearby tables. This time, we did not talk about pain. We talked about books, food, travel, childhood memories. Ethan told me he grew up in a small town with 2 older sisters. He said they had taught him how to apologize properly. I told him my younger brother still called me whenever he needed help cooking dinner. We laughed. It felt normal. That frightened me more than anything. When we left, the rain had stopped. Ethan walked me to the train station. He did not try to hold my hand. He did not kiss me. At the entrance, he said, "Good night, Emma." Good night. Then he turned and walked away. I watched him leave. For the first time, I wondered if Saturday night had not been a mistake. Maybe the mistake was thinking that one bad beginning could never lead anywhere good. Over the next week, Ethan came to our office several times. At work, he treated me exactly like everyone else. He asked clear questions. He listened during meetings. He never stayed near my desk longer than necessary. If anyone noticed the way his eyes sometimes found mine, they said nothing. Outside the office, we met twice. Once for dinner at a small Italian restaurant. Once for a walk beside the river. We moved slowly. No promises. No secret nights. No words we were not ready to say. I began to look forward to seeing him. That scared me. But it also made me feel alive again. Then Ryan came back. It happened on a Thursday evening. I was carrying groceries up the stairs to my apartment when I saw him sitting outside my door. For 1 second, I thought I was imagining him. He stood when he saw me. Emma. I stopped halfway down the hall. What are you doing here? He looked tired. His hair was messy. His face had lost the confidence I remembered. I need to talk to you. No. Please. I placed the grocery bag on the floor. There is nothing to talk about. Ryan stepped closer. Elise and I are over. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. You left me for her. I made a mistake. You made that mistake for 5 months. He looked down. I know. No, you don't. My hands began to shake. All the pain I had tried to bury returned at once. You lied to me every day, I said. You let me plan a future with you while you were building another one. I was confused. You were dishonest. He reached for my arm. I moved back. Don't touch me. Ryan's face changed. Not anger. Fear. He was finally beginning to understand that I was not waiting for him anymore. I still love you, he said. The words should have mattered. A week earlier, They might have destroyed me. Now they only sounded late. You miss being forgiven, I said. That is not the same as loving me. His eyes narrowed slightly. Is there someone else? I did not answer. That was enough. There is, he said. His voice became colder. How long did that take? I stared at him. You do not get to ask me that. So you replaced me in a week. You replaced me while we were still together. The hallway became silent. Ryan looked away. For a moment, shame crossed his face. Then it disappeared. Who is he? That is none of your business. I picked up my groceries. Please leave. He did not move. I said leave. A door opened at the end of the hallway. My neighbor stepped out and looked toward us. Ryan noticed. Finally, he walked away. Before entering the elevator, he turned back. You are going to regret this. The elevator doors closed before I could answer. I stood outside my apartment for several seconds. My body felt cold. When I went inside, I locked the door twice. Then I sat on the kitchen floor beside the grocery bag. I wanted to cry, but no tears came. Instead, I called Ethan. It was the first time I had ever called him. He answered after one ring. Emma. I tried to speak normally. I failed. Ryan came to my apartment. His voice changed immediately. Are you safe? Yes. He left. Did he threaten you? Not exactly. What happened? I told him everything. Ethan listened. When I finished, he asked, do you want me to come over? Part of me did. I wanted him beside me. I wanted his calm voice and steady hands. But another part of me knew I needed to face my fear without hiding behind someone new. No, I said. I think I need to be alone tonight. All right. He did not sound hurt. He did not try to change my mind. Call me if you need anything, he said. I will. Before we ended the call, he added, you did the right thing. Those words stayed with me. The next morning, I arrived at work early. I wanted a quiet hour before everyone else came in. Instead, Robert was waiting near my desk. His expression was serious. Emma, can we speak privately? My stomach tightened. I followed him into his office. He closed the door. On his desk was a printed email. I received an anonymous message last night, he said. My mouth went dry. What kind of message? It says you have a personal relationship with Ethan Parker. The room seemed to tilt. I stared at the paper. My name. Ethan's name. Details about the lounge. Details about my apartment building. Only one person could have sent it. Ryan. Robert watched me carefully. Is it true? I wanted to lie. I wanted to protect my job. But I was tired of secrets. We met before I knew he was our client, I said. Since then, we have met outside work. Robert leaned back in his chair. Are you in a relationship? I don't know what to call it yet. That is not a useful answer. I understand. He rubbed his forehead. This creates a serious problem. Fear moved through my chest. Am I being fired? I have not decided anything. I looked down at my hands. Robert continued. You are not part of the contract decision. That helps. But people may still question your judgment. I have never asked Ethan for anything. I believe you. That surprised me. He pointed to the email. But whoever sent this wants to cause damage. I took a slow breath. My former boyfriend sent it. Can you prove that? No. Robert was silent for a long moment. Then he said, for now, I am moving you to another account. My heart dropped. This is not a punishment, he added. It protects you, Ethan, and the company. I nodded. I knew he was right. Still, it hurt. My private choices had entered my workplace. The secret was no longer exciting. It had consequences. After the meeting, I went to the restroom and locked myself inside a stall. I pressed both hands over my face. I had wanted one night without pain. Now that night seemed ready to damage everything I had worked for. At noon, Ethan arrived for a scheduled meeting. Robert spoke to him before anyone else. I watched them through the glass wall of the conference room. Ethan's face remained calm, but his jaw became tight. A few minutes later, he left the room and walked toward my desk. He stopped several feet away. Professional distance. "Can we talk downstairs?" he asked. We met in the building lobby. I told him about Ryan. The visit. The warning. The anonymous email. Ethan listened without speaking. Then he said, "I can end the contract." "No. If my company works with another agency, your job will be safe." "No," I repeated. "You cannot make business decisions to protect me. I am trying to help." "I know. But that would make everything look worse." He knew I was right. His shoulders fell slightly. "What do you want to do?" It was the first time anyone had asked me that. Ryan had made decisions for both of us. My friends had tried to pull me out of pain. Robert had moved me to protect the company. Ethan was ready to change the contract. But this was my life. I needed to choose. "I want to keep my job," I said. "I want you to keep the contract. And I want us to stop hiding." His eyes searched mine. "What does that mean?" "It means we tell the truth." That afternoon, Ethan and I met with Robert together. We explained everything. How we met. When we learned about the business connection. What boundaries we had already set. I expected Robert to be angry. Instead, he listened. Then he created clear rules. I would not work on Ethan's account. I would not see private information about his company. Ethan would not take part in any decision about my role. If either of us broke those rules, the contract could end. We both agreed. The problem did not disappear. Some co-workers still whispered. A few people looked at me differently. But I stopped trying to control every opinion. 3 days later, Ryan waited for me outside the office. This time, Ethan was with me. We had planned to have dinner after work. When Ryan saw us together, his face became hard. "So this is him?" I felt Ethan move slightly closer. But he did not speak. He let me answer. "Yes." Ryan looked Ethan up and down. Then he laughed. "You barely know her." Ethan stayed calm. "That is true." The answer surprised Ryan. It surprised me too. "But I am trying to know her," Ethan continued. "And I am not going to speak for her." Ryan turned back to me. "You really trust this stranger?" I looked at Ethan. Then I looked at the man I had trusted for 3 years. Trust was not about time. Time could reveal a person. But time could also hide one. "I trust myself," I said. Ryan became quiet. Those were the words he had not expected. They were also the words I needed to hear. "I am not coming back to you," I continued. "Do not wait outside my home. Do not come to my office. Do not contact my manager again." His face turned pale. "If you continue, I will report it." For a moment, I thought he might argue. Then he looked around. Several people were leaving the building. A security guard stood near the entrance. Ryan finally understood that he no longer controlled the conversation. He walked away without another word. I watched until he disappeared around the corner. My legs began to shake. Ethan reached for my hand, then stopped. He waited. I placed my hand in his. That small choice meant more than any romantic speech. 6 weeks later, Ethan's company signed the contract with our agency. I remained on a different account. My work improved. Robert trusted me again. The whispers slowly stopped. People always find new things to discuss. Ethan and I continued seeing each other. Slowly. Carefully. Honestly. We learned that we did not agree about everything. He liked planning every detail. I often changed my mind at the last minute. He woke up early on weekends. I believed mornings should begin after 10. We had our first argument over a cancelled dinner. Then we had our first honest apology. Our relationship was not perfect. That was how I knew it was real. 3 months after the night we met, Ethan came to my apartment for dinner. This time, he arrived through the front door with flowers and a bottle of sparkling water. No loud music. No broken heart. No need to escape from anything. After dinner, we stood near the kitchen counter. The old note was still inside one of my drawers. I had forgotten about it. Ethan found it while looking for a bottle opener. He held it up and smiled. "Thank you for last night. Please lock the door when you leave." I covered my face. "I cannot believe you kept that. I cannot believe you left before telling me your last name. You did not tell me yours either. That is fair." He folded the note carefully. Then his expression became more serious. "Do you still want me to leave?" I looked around my apartment. The room no longer felt like the place where Ryan had broken my trust. It felt like my home again. I looked back at Ethan. "No," I said. "Not tonight." He smiled. But before he could kiss me, I raised one finger. "And tomorrow morning, nobody disappears." He laughed. "Agreed." That night began very differently from the first one. There was no pain pushing me forward. No fear chasing me. No need to forget another man. I stayed because I wanted to stay. In the morning, sunlight entered through the curtains. Ethan was awake beside me. Neither of us moved. Neither of us ran. The stranger was no longer a stranger. And I was no longer the woman who needed someone else to choose her. For the first time in a long time, I had chosen my own life. And that made all the difference. Sometimes, the person we trust for years can become a stranger. And sometimes, a stranger can show us the honesty we were missing. But Emma's real new beginning did not start when Ethan chose her. It started when she finally chose herself. What would you do in her place? Would you trust someone new? Or would fear stop you from trying again?